Hey guys, how's it going? So for a while, actually a few years, I've been noticing how bad Dragon Ball GT is. And a lot of people will claim that the reason why it's bad is because it's a disappointment from Z. Well, it is that, but you see, as a series in and of itself is also not very good. First of all, the plot isn't as good as the ones in Z, particularly if you're talking about the Frieza and Cell sagas. And the utilization of characters was just terrible. I mean, turning Goku into a kid, it was one of the worst things in the series. I mean, it basically like reset all of the development we got from Z, and he could have gone, I think, at least somewhat further. Uh, let's see, Pan was flat out annoying, and on top of that, a lot of the other characters that should have gotten development and utilization didn't. As a lot of people will say, Dragon Ball GT is really Dragon Ball Goku time. Now look, Goku's my favorite character and all, but I enjoy other characters like Vegeta and, I mean, I want to like Trunks and Goten, but Z didn't exactly encourage me to that. I much prefer Future Trunks, but, I mean, so many characters could have gotten development, but they didn't, so many problems with GT. And here I'm not going to deal much with plot, just with characters because of how complicated plot can be. And it could take so many different directions that character will be a bit easier to speak on. And I have a lot to say about character, so. Alright, so first is Goku, obviously. I mean, he's a protagonist. So what I would have changed about Goku in GT was I would have kept him an adult. Now, I know he's extremely powerful, but, I mean, come on, they've written ways for other characters to gain massive amounts of strength, so to me there's no excuse for why Goku has to be turned into a kid, even if he is a lot stronger. Also, that reset a lot of his development that he got from Z, so I feel they could have gone further with his development. So keeping him an adult was the most important thing, I suppose. I mean, there are other things, but that's the main point. Alright, then there's Oob. Now, the thing is, Oob really didn't get any development at all because like, the only time he seemed promising was at the end of Z, and in GT, let's be honest, folks, they pretty much ignored Oob. I mean, they showed him, but they didn't really develop him at all. And I really think that was really a missed opportunity because Oob could have evolved himself as a martial arts master. I mean, there's so many things they could have done with him. I also think they should have Goku should have taught him some of his techniques, such as Kaioken, and at least Kaioken, Kamehameha, Instant Transmission, and Solar Flare. If he knows nothing else, at least he should be taught those things. And I say Kaioken because Oob needs a power boost of some sort to keep up with the Saiyans, and, you know, he can't learn Super Saiyan due to him not having Saiyan genes, so that's basically how I would have handled Oob. You know, more development and more powers and abilities from Goku. Alright, so next is Pan. Now, I know a lot of you didn't like Pan, but let's face it, she's canon. You know, she appeared at the end of Z, so we pretty much have to deal with her character whether you guys like it or not. So I would have had Pan also train under Goku, perhaps, at some point. And unlike what they did with Gohan and Goten, I would have made her more interested in martial arts. Because it would be interesting to see a female Super Saiyan. Oh, that's another point. I would also have time skips as well, so we would see Pan starting off as a preteen, then eventually she'd be a teenager, and possibly near the end of the series she'd be a young adult. And at least by the time she becomes a teenager, she should learn Super Saiyan. Now, I'm not saying she has to be a Super Saiyan 2 or anything, but at least a Super Saiyan, because they never showed her as a Super Saiyan in the series, and a lot of people claim it's because she's only a quarter Saiyan, but that's contradictory because, you know, Goku Jr. and Vegeta Jr. were Super Saiyans, and they had less Saiyan genes than she did, so. Also, of course, I would have developed her character to make her a lot less annoying. But that's basically Pan in a nutshell. Alright, next is Vegeta, the Prince of all Saiyans. Now, I would have kept Vegeta as Goku's rival because, let's be honest, do you really want somebody else to be Goku's rival at this point? Now, I suppose it will be difficult, well, more difficult to develop the rivalry between Goku and Vegeta at this point because they're pretty much friends, but I would still try to find a way to keep him relevant, and I would keep him, or at least if he's not already, then find a way to make him the second strongest character again, because that's the only way that him being a rival to Goku and continuing to be a rival to Goku would have seemed convincing, even in GT. And of course I would have had Vegeta participate in more battles and, you know, would have won against more opponents. Alright, then we have Trunks. Now, because Trunks was introduced near the end of Z, well, you know, as a kid, he didn't really get much development. I probably would have had him participate in more battles. Not that he would be a warrior, because let's be honest, he isn't, but I would have had him participate in a lot more battles, and I actually did like the idea of him, Goku, and Pan going up into space, but I still think that they didn't develop them enough when it came to that, so I probably would have... I could have seen them doing the same thing, but I would have developed a more permanent relationship and a more dynamic one developed between him, Goku, and Pan. Then we have Goten. Probably the same thing. I would have Goten develop as a character. It would even be interesting if Trunks and Goten were to become Super Saiyan 2s at a certain point. I don't see it as being possible, though, but it would be interesting. Oh, and I'd love to see an adult Gotenks. Sorry, but I don't have too much to say on Goten. Alright, then we have Gohan. In all honesty, like, at first I was thinking that perhaps Gohan should be, I don't know, maybe a fighter again, but let's be honest, that's not really going to happen. If you know Gohan's character, then you'd know that, I mean, he could be a great fighter, but he's not really a fighter at heart. Basically, that's what Black and Fist said. He's not a fighter at heart. He's, I suppose you could say he's a pacifist. Like, he'll only fight when he absolutely has to, and when the world's at stake. But I would still have Gohan train somewhat. I'd probably lower his relevance, though, because he's not a warrior. And he already got a lot of development in Z, so sorry to you Gohan fans. Then there's Piccolo. I think it would be interesting if Piccolo were a mentor to Pan. Actually, that would be an interesting plot, actually. Just as Piccolo was a mentor to Gohan, Piccolo would also be a mentor to Pan, and Pan would also have Goku as a mentor, like kind of the same thing what happened with Gohan, because if you think about it, Gohan had two senseis. He first had Piccolo, then he had Goku. So I think to repeat the same thing with Pan would be interesting. Like maybe he can do the same thing with her that he did with Gohan, you know, force her to survive in the wilderness and all that. So I could see Piccolo as being a second generation sensei. Kind of like he was a first generation sensei with Gohan. So that'd be quite interesting. Alright, now next let's talk about some of the villains. Now, believe it or not, although the execution was pretty choppy, I actually enjoyed the concept of Baby. You know, he was original for the Dragon Ball series. So I would have improved upon the concept of Baby. I'm not going to explain like how, but I just would have done so. But I still would have utilized Baby as a character. Though I'm not sure when I would have introduced him. Alright, next is Super 17, and I'm going to be honest, I didn't really like Super 17. He was my least favorite of the major GT villains. I also thought that he was fairly irrelevant because they already did the Ultimate Android concept, i.e. Cell. Now some have proposed, like, instead of Ultimate 17, they would have an Ultimate Cell, but let's be honest, that'd be kind of redundant. Just like a lot of people complain about Fukatsu no F, and them bringing back Frieza, you know, be kind of irrelevant. At least they tried something a little bit new, but I didn't like 17, so I probably wouldn't include him in the series. Then we have the Shadow Dragons, especially Omega Shenron. Now, while I did like Sin Shenron / Omega Shenron in concept, I also thought that the execution was, while it was better than the others, it was still... And on top of that, I didn't like the idea of Goku going off with the dragon at the end, so I probably wouldn't have included the Shadow Dragons either. I mean, it kind of made sense, but I guess that's just a personal preference. I would have written some other villains, But Baby I would have kept. I would have written him better. And of course, I actually did like Super Saiyan 4, especially Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta. So I would have included Super Saiyan 4 Goku. I mean, it kind of makes sense because Super Saiyan 4 Goku was actually designed by Akira Toriyama, at least so I've heard. So having him in the series would make sense because, like, a lot of fans, they like Super Saiyan 4, they just don't like the way GT was written. Also, I would have changed things by making Goku a lot more powerful because, come on, I saw him struggling to lift a building. I'm like, certain characters from other universes can lift buildings without any problems. At this point, Goku should be strong enough to lift up a continent. Basically, I would have made Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta a lot more powerful and a lot more beastly. Again, like, I would have made them probably able to lift up at least a city, if not a continent or something, and probably would have allowed, well, considering I heard Beerus can destroy a galaxy, I probably would have had these two be able to destroy maybe multiple galaxies, like they'd literally be that powerful, and find a way to write villains so that they would be able to match these two. Trust me, it can be done. Alright, then we have Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, and yes, perhaps one of the last villains, or the last villain, would warrant Goku and Vegeta fusing to become Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. I mean, let's be honest, he's so awesome that nobody ever matched him or surpassed him. Like, granted, he only appeared once, but, I mean, I can't be the only person who thinks that Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is just awesome. Honestly, he probably has the ability to destroy the universe, and if he wasn't written like that, I would have made him be able to destroy the universe with ease, because of how powerful he is. However, to make things a little more interesting, perhaps the opponent he fights actually is as strong as he is, so he has to get the job done very quickly. Alright, so that's my general thoughts on how to utilize the characters better in GT. And, like, when it comes down to it, the main problem I feel that GT lacked, well, the main problem is that GT had was mainly that its utilization of characters was poor and the plots were choppy and poorly executed, particularly the Super 17 plot and the Baby plot. I actually felt that the Shadow Dragons plot was better. I just didn't really like the overall idea of the Shadow Dragons. I don't know, it was kind of weird. But, I mean, I have other thoughts on this, but those are the main ones, particularly when it came to character. Like I said, plot would be a little too complicated for me to talk about in one video, so yeah, like, this is pretty much my thoughts on everything else involving rewriting GT. Anyway, see you guys later.